First story. I neglected my daughter, said her opinion didn't matter, let my new stepdaughter bully her, and allowed my new husband to ground her. I then forced my daughter to give up her room to my stepdaughter. Now my daughter has abandoned me and didn't show up when I was in the hospital, and I'm regretting how I treated her. Hi Reddit. I 42F am getting married later this year. My fiancé 44M proposed on New Year's Eve after 3 years together. I have 2 kids from my previous marriage, my daughter 14F and son 12M. He has a daughter 13F from his previous marriage. From the outside, this might seem like a standard blended family situation, but it's been rocky from the start, mostly because of my daughter. She's been cold, disrespectful, and straight up hostile towards both my fiancé and his daughter since the very beginning. I've tried to understand why, and I'll get into all of that. But the reason I'm here is because she recently had a full-on meltdown when I told her the wedding is happening, and that she'll be sharing a room with her new stepsister. She told me she hated him, she hated his daughter, and that I was ruining her life. I told her to stay in her room and be quiet, because her opinion doesn't matter in this decision anymore. And now my sister and mom are telling me I went too far. Here's the full story. I met my fiancé when my kids were 11 and 9. Their dad had moved away 2 years earlier, and while we share custody on paper, in reality, he's barely around. The kids were used to it being just the 3 of us. I dated casually before, but this was the first serious relationship. When I introduced them to him, my daughter was polite but distant. My son immediately warmed up. He likes anyone who lets him tag along on man stuff like fishing, fixing things, hunting, whatever. But my daughter, she got colder and more sarcastic by the day. She called my fiancé Captain Obvious behind his back and said he mansplains everything and makes dumb jokes. She rolled her eyes at him constantly, and at one point told me he was a cringe dad who acts like he's on a podcast. Her words. She wasn't even trying to hide her contempt after the first year. Every little thing he did annoyed her. If he suggested a movie night, she'd disappear into her room. If he cooked, she'd make something else for herself and refuse to eat. When he bought her a birthday gift, a drawing tablet she said she wanted, she gave it back the next day, saying she changed her mind. Her stepsister, meanwhile, was excited to get to know us. A little too excited, maybe. She tried to talk to my daughter constantly, invite her to hang out, and compliment her clothes, but was ignored or shut down every time. Then she started tattling. My daughter would ignore her, and suddenly I'd be hearing that she was being mean or said something under her breath or looked at her funny. At first, I thought my daughter was just being cruel, but after a few of these instances, it became obvious that the stepdaughter was going out of her way to get my daughter in trouble. One time, she told my fiancé that my daughter pushed her on purpose. When they were coming in the house, there were no marks, no injuries, no evidence. And my son, who was there, said they just bumped into each other by accident. Another time, she said my daughter called her fat. I checked their messages. It never happened. But anytime I tried to bring this up with my fiancé, he'd defend his daughter like she was a fragile glass doll. If I even hinted that maybe she was being a little manipulative, he'd shut it down. He thinks my daughter is the issue. And yeah, sometimes she's harsh, but she doesn't lie. She doesn't make up stories. She just wants to be left alone. Over time, the favoritism became obvious. My son got included in everything: weekend hunting trips, archery practice, father-son movie nights, even a weekend fishing tournament in another state. My daughter was never invited. She wouldn't have gone anyway, but it's the principle. When his daughter came to our house, she'd walk around like she owned the place, changing the music in the living room, leaving her stuff in my daughter's area, and interrupting her when she was on Zoom with friends. Once, she even opened a package addressed to my daughter and said she thought it was for her. I told her not to do it again, but my fiancé brushed it off like it was a harmless mistake. I brought all of this up with my daughter. I asked her to try. I've had dozens of talks with her. I said she didn't need to be best friends with the stepdaughter, but she needed to be civil. Every time, she'd just say, "I don't trust her. She wants to replace me." She'd say my fiancé acts like her dad and tries to parent her when she never asked for that. And that's true. He does try to step into the dad role. A little too eagerly, honestly. He once grounded her for talking back to his daughter. I had to undo it and told him he's not her father. He got offended and slept on the couch that night. I told him again a few months later, "You don't discipline my daughter, ever." He said fine, but now he just tells me what to do whenever there's a conflict. It's like he thinks he's the boss of the house, and I'm just supposed to back him up. Still, despite all this, I've stayed with him because I genuinely believe he's a good man who wants this to work. I also know my daughter is going through a tough age and hates change. But at a certain point, enough is enough. He proposed on New Year's Eve. We were on a trip without the kids, just a weekend getaway. He did the whole speech, ring, and champagne, very traditional. I said yes. We've been living together for over a year, and I thought maybe now that things are more official, my daughter would come around. Spoiler, she didn't. When we got back, I sat my kids down and told them the news. My son was excited. My daughter didn't even look up. She said, "Great. Now I have to live with a narcissist and his brat." I tried to keep my cool. I said I understand she's not happy, but this is happening. She left the room, slammed the door, and refused to talk to me for 2 days. Then we had the conversation that brought me here. I told her we'd be reorganizing the bedrooms. She'd be sharing with her new stepsister. She screamed. Like a full-volume teenage meltdown, crying, yelling that I hate her, that I chose them over her, that I was ruining her life. I told her to go to her room and stay there. I went in later to talk and said yes. I told her her opinion doesn't matter anymore. I've spent 3 years trying to involve her, understand her, give her space, include her, and listen to her. Nothing is ever enough. I told her I'm an adult, and I'm marrying who I choose. This is my house, and she needs to accept that this is her family now. That includes the new room arrangement. Period. She started sobbing again. Didn't say anything. Hasn't spoken to me since. I mentioned it to my sister and my mum, and now they're saying I'm too harsh. My mum said I was being abusive. My sister said I'm bulldozing my daughter. I don't think that's fair. They weren't the ones who spent 3 years playing referee every time the girls were in the same room. They didn't deal with the petty arguments, the slammed doors, or the constant tension. They didn't sit through the passive-aggressive meals, where my daughter refused to even look in her stepsister's direction, while the other one acted like she was auditioning for Perfect Stepdaughter of the Year. They didn't have to balance a household where one kid was always fuming and the other was always playing victim. And they sure weren't there when my fiancé started acting like he had more authority in my house than he does. That part's been building slowly. He started with harmless things, suggesting rules for screen time, meal plans, and chores. I let it go because honestly, I liked that he was trying to help run the house. But then he'd remind my kids of rules I never approved. He once took my daughter's phone for a day after she cursed under her breath during an argument. I told him point blank, "Don't touch my kid's stuff without talking to me first." He said, if she lived under her dad's roof, she'd be dealing with worse. That was the start of me realizing he sees himself as more than just my partner. Still, I let that go too, hoping it would smooth out over time. But now I can't ignore it anymore. Since the engagement, he's gotten worse about correcting my daughter. If she doesn't greet him when she walks in, he makes a passive-aggressive comment. If she's quiet during dinner, he tells her she should work on her attitude. He acts like everything she does is a personal attack. The latest blow-up wasn't just about the wedding or the room sharing. It was about years of me asking my daughter to just be nice, while no one held the other side accountable. And I'm tired of pretending that both girls are equally difficult when they're not. My daughter is blunt and stubborn and refuses to play nice. I can live with that. What I can't live with is being told that she's the problem in a situation where she's clearly reacting to a pattern of exclusion and condescension. I've watched his daughter whisper to him in front of mine and then give smug looks when my daughter gets scolded. I've heard her mock my daughter's music, style, and even her voice. When my daughter defends herself, it turns into, "Why are you being so mean to her?" I've even caught her going through my daughter's drawers once when they were supposed to be cleaning the room they temporarily shared over a weekend. I confronted her, and she cried immediately. Waterworks, full performance. My fiancé rushed to comfort her before even asking what happened. But if I bring this up, I'm too critical. I'm picking sides. I'm too protective of my daughter. Now, since the blow-up, the house is tense. My son is trying to stay out of it, but I can tell he feels caught in the middle. He still likes my fiancé and doesn't get why his sister's so angry. But even he said the room sharing might be a bad idea. I told him it's temporary just until we finish the basement remodel in a few months. But he said, "You know they're going to kill each other, right?" My daughter still isn't speaking to me. She comes home, goes straight to her room, doesn't eat with us, and only texts me if she needs something. I asked her to talk to me. She said, "You made your choice. There's nothing to say." My fiancé thinks I need to crack down and enforce the new family dynamic. He said she's getting too old to act like a victim, and that a little discipline would fix her attitude. I told him again, she's not your child. He rolled his eyes and said, then you do it. My mum told me I'm alienating my daughter, that I'm repeating the same mistake she made when we were kids, choosing a man over family. I told her this is different. I've been a single mum for a decade. I've done everything alone. I finally found someone who supports me, and I'm not throwing that away because my daughter doesn't like his kid. She doesn't have to like them, but she does have to live with them. And before anyone says I haven't tried, I have. I set up therapy when she was 12. She refused to go after the third session. I suggested family counseling. She said it was fake. I asked her to try one-on-one hangouts with the stepdaughter. She said, I don't hang out with people who snitch and lie. She's not passive. She's not shy. She knows how she feels, and she's made it clear for years. No one is forcing her to be best friends with anyone. But she also doesn't get to sabotage every attempt I've made to move this family forward. I'm not some naive mum with rose-colored glasses. I see the problems. I just don't think her anger gives her veto power over my life. I didn't choose this man overnight. I waited years, gave space, and waited for her to come around. She never did. At some point, I have to live my own life. I have to build a future that doesn't revolve around walking on eggshells around a teenager who refuses to budge an inch. If I let her dictate my decisions, I'm setting a precedent that her comfort is more important than the stability of our family. So I told her flat out, this is happening. She'll share a room with her stepsister for now. She will live in this house with all of us. And if she doesn't like it, that's unfortunate. But the ship has sailed. I love her, but I'm not going to let her poison the well because she doesn't like change. But now, with my daughter icing me out, my fiancé acting like I've given him free rein, and my family saying I'm being cruel, I don't know. Maybe I said it too harshly. Maybe I should have handled it better. But I'm also tired of every decision being about how to tiptoe around a teenager who won't compromise. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. You talk a big game about being a realist and taking charge of your own life. But what I'm seeing here is a mum who's willfully blind to the power dynamics in her own home. Your fiancé is not just a good guy. He's clearly overstepping, policing your daughter like he's some authority figure, while his kid gets to pull these manipulative stunts with zero accountability. You say your daughter's never given a reason for disliking them. Bullshit. She's been showing you exactly why with her behavior for years. She doesn't feel safe. She doesn't feel respected. And instead of backing your daughter, you decided it's easier to believe she's just moody and selfish. The real kicker for me. The her opinion doesn't matter line. Jesus Christ. She's not objecting to a color of curtains. She's begging you not to force her to share a room with someone who undermines her and tattles on her constantly. You keep calling her rude and stubborn, but she's literally been trapped in survival mode in her own damn house, while everyone tells her to just try harder. You're right, you're an adult. And you're failing this kid hard. Comment 2. NTA. Look, I know this is going to be the unpopular take here, but I've got teens too, and sometimes you have to call a spade a spade. Your daughter's been hostile for 3 years. That's not just protecting boundaries. That's emotional warfare. I get that the fiancé isn't perfect. Trying to parent a kid who isn't his is always a minefield. But if your daughter's default setting is to hate everyone who enters your life, when does it become her responsibility to grow the hell up? Kids can have feelings, sure. But those feelings don't get to derail your entire future. She understands the world. She knows exactly what she's doing by stonewalling and manipulating you with the silent treatment. It's emotional blackmail, plain and simple. That said, your fiancé needs to chill the hell out too. He's got to stop playing dad to a girl who clearly isn't having it. Keep parenting lanes separate. You enforce the rules with your kids. He handles his. Period. But don't let Reddit gaslight you into thinking you're ruining your daughter's life by, living your own. Comment 3. YTA? And I don't understand how you can't see how you're wrong. You told your daughter that her opinion doesn't matter to you. That's brutal. She's not objecting to what pizza you're ordering. She's crying out because her entire world is shifting, and she doesn't feel heard or protected. You said she has to accept sharing a room. No negotiation. No privacy. Just deal with it. You're stripping her last safe space while jamming a relationship down her throat that she clearly doesn't want. You keep minimizing this situation like she's just being a bratty teen. But maybe she has a damn good reason. Maybe your fiancé is great to you and your son, but cold or weird around her. Maybe his daughter is only sweet when you're watching but petty when your back's turned. Your daughter's been consistent for 3 years, and instead of investigating, you just threw your hands up and blamed her. Look, you want a husband. Cool, but you have children. You don't get to bulldoze them into silence and then act shocked when they stop talking to you. You say she'll adjust. I say she's counting down the days until she can leave. Get therapy. Undo the room sharing plan. Talk to your daughter without defensiveness. Or enjoy your wedding. And don't be surprised when your daughter isn't in the pictures. Update. Thanks to everyone who commented. I didn't respond because I needed time to process and deal with some things that have blown up since I posted. What started as a power struggle between me and my daughter has now turned into something much bigger. I still don't think I'm the arsehole, but I'll admit I didn't see the whole picture, and now it might be too late to fix some of the damage. After the original post, I decided to move forward with the wedding plans as scheduled. My daughter was still icing me out, and honestly, I thought it was just another one of her cold phases. She's pulled the silent treatment before. I figured she'd get over it eventually. But then my son started acting off too. He stopped hanging out with my fiancée, didn't want to go on weekend trips anymore, and started declining his phone calls. This is the same kid who used to beg to go hunting with him. When I asked what changed, he said nothing, just that he didn't feel like it. I pushed, and he finally said he didn't like how the fiancé treated my daughter, and that he acts different when you're not around. I asked for examples. He clammed up and left the room. That's when I realized my daughter might not be exaggerating after all. Not long after that, things really went downhill. One afternoon, I came home early and found my future stepdaughter in my daughter's room with her two friends, laughing over something on her phone. When I asked what they were doing in there, they went quiet. My daughter had gone out with a friend and left her journal on her bed. They were reading it aloud. I was furious. I told my fiancé's daughter she'd been warned before about respecting boundaries. She gave me that fake innocent look and said she just wanted to understand her better. I told her to leave the room and stay out of it going forward. When I brought it up with my fiancé, he dismissed it as a teenage misunderstanding and said I was overreacting. I told him this wasn't the first time and that I didn't want her in my daughter's room unsupervised again. He became defensive and said it was also his daughter's room. I didn't budge, reminded him the arrangement was temporary, and he eventually agreed. A few days later, my daughter got into a fight at school. She punched a girl one of her future stepsister's friends. Got suspended for 3 days. I was angry and embarrassed, but when I sat her down to talk, she told me the girl had been calling her jealous and pathetic, and mocking her for being replaced. Apparently, the stepdaughter had been sharing private stuff from our house with her friends, including the journal incident. I checked with a school counselor, who confirmed that there had been a pattern of tension involving the same group of girls. That weekend, I hosted a family dinner with relatives from my side and a few close friends. It was supposed to be light and celebratory, our engagement, upcoming wedding, blending the families, all of that. My daughter stayed quiet, as usual. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She wasn't rude, just withdrawn. After dessert, my fiancé made a joke about how some people still haven't accepted the new family, and it fell flat. He then made a comment directly to my daughter. You could at least try being pleasant for one day. My sister immediately told him to back off, and the whole room got tense. After the guests left, the gloves came off. My daughter stormed off to her room. My fiancé started yelling at his daughter, asking why she couldn't keep her friends out of drama. She shouted back that it was all my daughter's fault. I tried to defuse things, but then he went down the hall and told my daughter she was grounded for blowing up the dinner and humiliating the family. I told him to back off, he's not her father, and he knows the rule. He told me someone needed to discipline her if I wouldn't. I told him to get out of her room immediately. That night, my daughter didn't sleep in her bed. I thought she stayed with a friend, but in the morning, she was gone along with a suitcase, her laptop, and the emergency cash I keep in my closet. She had taken the train to her dad's city, 3 hours away. I hadn't even known she was talking to him again. Turns out, they'd been texting for weeks. She told him everything about the fiancé, the stepsister, the room sharing, and even the journal incident. And for once, her dad stepped up. He offered to let her move in. She's now staying with him. She left me a note. I won't post it here, but the line that stuck was, "You picked your new family. I'm just giving you what you wanted." I was heartbroken. Angry, too. I felt like she just ran away without giving me a chance. But when I tried to call her, she didn't answer. She hasn't responded to a single text. My son talks to her occasionally, but refuses to be the middleman. Then it got worse. A week later, I checked my fiancé's phone call recordings. One of them was a conversation he had with a friend, likely after one of our fights. In it, he referred to my daughter as a nightmare, a lost cause, and most painfully, a burden I'm ready to be done with. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He said he was venting and didn't mean it. I told him to leave for a few days while I sorted my thoughts. He refused, said I was letting a dramatic teen control my life. I told him I wasn't asking. I packed his things and he left. Then came the final blow. I tried to get us into family therapy. I contacted a well-reviewed counselor who agreed to a joint intake session. After one meeting, she told me she wouldn't continue unless it was individual therapy with my daughter only. She said the home dynamic was imbalanced and not currently healthy for reconciliation work. I asked what that meant. She said it wasn't safe for the daughter. That shook me. I don't see my fiancé as dangerous. But I'm also realizing that danger doesn't always mean physical. Emotional erosion is still harmful. Since then, my son has distanced himself too. He still lives here, but he barely talks to me outside of what's necessary. He's stopped spending time with my fiancé entirely. I asked him if he wanted to visit his sister. He said yes, so I arranged for him to stay with her and their dad for a weekend. He didn't want me to come. I haven't seen my daughter in over a month now. I still plan to marry my fiancé, but not anytime soon. We're putting the wedding on hold. My sister won't speak to me. My mother says I did this to myself. Maybe I did. I've always believed in being a firm parent, that kids shouldn't get to dictate adult decisions. I still believe that. But I'm also learning that forcing them to fit a dynamic they never asked for has consequences. And some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just thought people should know where this went. Especially the ones who warned me. If you've made it this far, thanks. Comments. Comment 1. You seriously thought calling your own daughter's privacy and pain, just teenage mood swings, was going to slide forever? OP, this wasn't some clash of personalities. This was emotional neglect paired with willful ignorance. Your fiancé overstepped boundaries again and again, and you just kept finding excuses. The journal incident alone should have been a hard stop. But you brushed it off. Your daughter literally told you she was being harassed in her own house. Then the other girl spreads it at school. She gets humiliated and suspended. And still you defend this new family dynamic like it's sacred. And let's talk about that voicemail. He called your daughter a burden. If anyone I was dating ever said that about my kid, even as a vent, that relationship would be over immediately. But no. You pack him a weekend bag. Wow. I'm not even mad on your daughter's behalf. I'm just sad. Sad that she had to be the adult. Sad that your son now sees it too. You didn't lose your daughter because of the wedding. You lost her because you made it loud and clear whose comfort mattered more. Comment 2. YTA. All the way. You got played, OP. Played by a man who clearly wanted a do-over family, but only the parts he liked: boy dad weekends, a pliable partner, and a daughter he could ignore or control. He overstepped from day one. Grounding your kid, calling her a burden, letting his little angel stomp all over boundaries while whining to daddy when she got caught. He is a manipulative piece of work grooming the family dynamic to make himself the center. And you let him. You didn't just let him. You defended him. Over and over. Hell, even after the voice recording, you still called what he said not a big word. Are you effing serious? You don't get to say, my daughter just left without warning, when she literally told you for years she felt unwanted. She warned you. You just refused to hear it. She's gone. Your son is next. And when they both stop calling, you'll be sitting next to your fiancé in a wedding photo wondering why your kids aren't in it. Maybe play that voicemail at the reception. Comment 3. I'm a family therapist, and I've worked with a lot of blended families. What you described isn't a difficult adjustment. It's emotional invalidation layered with control. Your daughter didn't act out for no reason. She showed every classic symptom of a teen feeling displaced: withdrawal, anger, protectiveness over personal space, and distrust towards the adult she saw as threatening her security, your fiancé. These are not random behaviors. They're survival responses. When she told you the other girl was annoying, what she really meant was, this person makes me feel unsafe in my own home. And instead of decoding that or sitting down with a neutral third party, you dismissed it as attitude. Then forced them into a shared bedroom. That would have made even the most well-adjusted kid crack. The other red flag. Your therapist is refusing to continue unless it's individual therapy for the daughter. That tells me there's more going on here than you're even aware of. and possibly something about your fiancé that isn't appropriate in a family setting. Please don't just hit pause on the wedding. Hit pause on the entire relationship. Take a long look at how much of this you've normalized. Update. A lot has happened since I last posted. I never thought I'd be back here, but the fallout hasn't stopped, and neither has the reckoning. If you haven't read my earlier posts, the short version: I got married despite my teenage daughter being strongly against it. Had years of conflict between her and my new stepdaughter. Didn't handle it well, and my daughter eventually left to live with her dad. I thought things would calm down once the wedding happened. They didn't. The wedding went ahead. My daughter never showed. I sent the invitation anyway, even though I knew she wouldn't come. My son did. He walked me down the aisle, but he was distant, cold. I thought maybe it was just the tension of the day, the missing sister, and the pressure. I figured things would smooth out afterwards. They didn't. 2 weeks after the wedding, my son went for a scheduled visit with his dad. He was supposed to be back in 3 days. I packed his bag myself. That was the last time I saw him in my home. A week passed. Then 2. I reached out, no answer. Eventually, I got a short text. I want to stay with Dad a little longer. I called. Straight to voicemail. I called his father. No response. I'll spare the legal drama, but eventually, I learned the full story. Their dad, who abandoned them for years, isn't even around anymore. He left them at his mother's house and took off for another job opportunity. Classic move. I assumed, foolishly, that when my kids saw their father ditch them again, they'd come home. They didn't. Instead, they stayed with their grandparents. The same grandparents who were mostly absent when they were small. The same ones who used to forget birthdays. I thought they wouldn't take them seriously. But apparently they changed. My daughter's in therapy, by her own choice. My son is enrolled in a local school. I found out he told the administration he wanted to legally change his last name to his father's. I wasn't just replaced. I was erased. When I told my husband, yes, I'll call him that now, he said. It's for the best. They'll figure out who really loves them when the dust settles. He said it so casually, like it wasn't even about my kids. Just obstacles in the way of our perfect little new family. The worst part? A piece of me wanted to believe him. That my kids would eventually realize how I sacrificed for them. That they'd come back. That I was still the parent who stayed. But now, I'm not sure they will. And I'm starting to question whether I was ever the safe parent to begin with. Because now I'm seeing patterns I ignored. Let's talk about my stepdaughter. Her personality has shifted. The mask is slipping fast. She acts perfect when my husband's around, cleaning, polite, helpful. But the second he leaves the room, her tone changes. She talks back. Pushes boundaries. Makes subtle, cutting comments. When I push back, she cries. Instantly. Loudly. Like a switch. And my husband. He falls for it every time. The final straw happened 2 weeks ago. We were sitting at dinner. She started talking about how some people don't know how to be real mothers. I told her to watch her tone. She rolled her eyes and snake. Just saying. I snapped. I raised my voice. I told her to stop acting like a little snake and start respecting the woman who runs this house. She burst into tears. Full meltdown. My husband slammed his fork down and yelled at me. Yelled. Not raised his voice, full on snap. Said I had no right to talk to his daughter that way. Said if I ever attacked her like that again, I'd have to leave. He has never spoken to me like that before. Not even during our worst arguments. That was the moment I saw him for what he really was. And then it hit me. That's what I should have done. With my kids. They didn't need a perfect house. Or a blended fairy tale. They needed a mother who saw the warning signs. Who didn't force closeness. Who didn't dismiss discomfort as teenage drama. Who didn't try to keep the peace with a man who clearly didn't care about their place in this home. Now, I'm left with a house that's too quiet, a husband I don't fully trust, and a girl under my roof who plays innocent, while slowly pushing buttons until I snap. I wanted love. Stability. I got performance, control, and distance. My daughter hasn't replied to a single message. My son sends polite updates, but never says, "Love you" anymore. I miss them every day, but I've stopped sending photos. I know they go unseen. I could fight legally. Technically, I still have joint custody. I could drag them back, disrupt their school, their new life, and re-trigger the cycle. But I'm not going to. Not because I don't love them. Because I finally understand that forcing people to stay never ends well. I did that once already. I forced my kids to stay in a home that made them anxious. I forced a marriage into a house that wasn't ready for it. I forced a family where the lines were drawn in sand, not stone. I can't do that again. If they want to come back, they'll know I'm here. But I won't chase them just to prove I still matter. I don't even know if they'll ever want to hear from me again. And maybe I deserve that. Maybe I lost my kids trying to win someone else's approval. And now, I'm not sure what I'm left with. Comments. Comment 1. I know you're finally getting it. But damn, OP, this is what losing your kids in real time looks like. Not because they're spiteful, but because they had to leave to protect themselves. And it didn't have to go this way. You let a man come in, disrespect your daughter, manipulate your son, and parent your kids when he had no emotional credit with them. You let a teenage girl who wasn't even your child weaponize tears and pit your home into sides. And now you're shocked your kids don't want to come back. That voice your husband used when you yelled at his daughter. That wasn't new. That was always there, you just weren't the target before. You sacrificed your children's trust for a relationship with a man who encouraged you to let them go. Think about that. He told you to detach from your kids. He's not your partner, he's a effing parasite who wanted a curated version of a family without any of the mess. And the minute you stopped being useful, you got the rage too. I hope you get out, for your sake. But don't expect your kids to be there waiting. You dropped the rope. They just finally stopped picking it up. Comment 2. Your husband is a controlling arsehole, and your stepdaughter is a manipulative brat. You gave both of them the keys to your house and let them tear it apart from the inside. That girl weaponized your daughter's pain and made herself the victim in every scenario. She played you and her father, and now she's running your household like a little dictator in a Disney Channel drama. You gave her your daughter's room, your daughter's mother, and now your daughter's identity is being rewritten without her even being there. And your husband? The "you need to let them go" comment is psychological warfare. That's the kind of thing abusers say to wear you down and push you into abandoning your own identity. You married a man who wanted a clean slate, one without your baggage. And to him, that baggage was your children. The only question left is, are you still going to write it off as blending families gone wrong? Or are you finally going to call this what it really is, a total effing betrayal? Update. This will likely be my last update, I promise. The situation reached a point where there was nothing left to explain away. I'm divorced now. I finally did the right thing. I'll start there, because that's the only part that feels clean. After my last post, I tried to keep the marriage together longer than I should have. I told myself I owed it to the vows, that leaving so soon would prove everyone right. I kept thinking if I just stayed calm, stayed quiet, and stopped reacting, things would stabilize. Instead, they got worse. The harassment became constant. My stepdaughter didn't scream or act out in obvious ways anymore. She didn't need to. She learned how to apply pressure quietly. She'd forget to tell her father things I said, then cry when he confronted me. She'd rearrange items in shared spaces and deny it. She started telling people I was unstable because I cried in private and locked my bedroom door. My ex-husband took her side every time. Every single time. If I corrected her tone, I was bullying. If I enforced a boundary, I was controlling. If I cried, I was manipulative. He started monitoring my calls. He didn't outright forbid me from contacting my kids, but he made it clear it upset him. He'd say things like, "Why are you reopening wounds?" Or, "You're obsessed with kids who chose to abandon you." He suggested I stop trying altogether so I could heal. That was the moment something snapped in me. Because a parent who loves their spouse does not encourage them to detach from their children. Around that time, my health crashed. I collapsed at work. Full blackout. ER visit. Stress-induced. The doctor asked about my home life. I lied. Habit. He didn't buy it. He told me plainly that if I didn't remove myself from the source of stress, my body would keep forcing me to stop. I went home and found a letter from a collections agency addressed to my ex-husband. That's when the financial part unraveled. He had secret debt. A lot of it. Credit cards, personal loans, and things opened before we married and during. He'd been paying minimums and moving balances around. Some of it was in collections. He never told me. Our joint account was being drained faster than I realized, not by groceries or utilities, but by his debt. When I confronted him, he said it wasn't my business because we're a family now. He then suggested I add him to the house deed to show trust, so refinancing would be easier. That conversation ended the marriage. I quietly consulted a lawyer. He confirmed what I suspected. Had I signed anything, I would have been legally responsible for his debt. The lawyer also told me to document everything, especially regarding my stepdaughter. That advice saved me. 2 weeks later, CPS showed up at my door. My stepdaughter had told a teacher I was emotionally abusive and that she was afraid of me. No physical allegations, but enough language to trigger a report. I cooperated fully. I handed over messages, notes, medical records, and therapy intake paperwork. The investigator spoke to neighbors, to coworkers, to my ex-husband. The case was closed quickly. No findings. My ex-husband's response wasn't relief. It was anger. He said, "You must have done something to make her say that." That night, he told me if I tried to leave, he'd make sure everyone knew how unstable I was. He said I'd already lost my kids. My reputation wouldn't survive another hit. He said he'd take the house and the divorce because I was mentally unwell. I moved out the next morning. I stayed with a coworker. Filed for divorce within the week. My lawyer handled communication from then on. The debts were confirmed. He tried to fight responsibility for them. He lost. The divorce finalized quickly. Here's the part that hurts the most. My kids didn't show up to anything. Not the court hearing. Not the mediation. Not the day I signed the papers. I didn't expect them to. But I hoped. I reached out once to tell them I left him. That I understood now. That I was sorry without explaining or defending myself. My daughter didn't reply. My son sent one message. "I'm glad you're safe." That's it. I don't blame them. I see now that my kids weren't rejecting me to punish me. They were surviving. They were choosing the environment that felt quieter, even if imperfect. And I had been part of what made home unsafe for them. The hardest realization is this. I wasn't malicious. I wasn't cruel on purpose. But I was wrong. I chose control over connection. I chose being right over being safe. I chose a marriage I thought would bring stability, and instead defended it, while it harmed the people I loved most. I don't know if my kids will ever come back. I don't know if they'll forgive me. I'm not waiting with expectations anymore. I'm doing the work quietly. Therapy. Boundaries. Living alone. Learning how not to override discomfort just because it inconveniences me. I'm finally free. Free from a marriage built on power and fear. Free from pretending I didn't see what I saw. Free from defending the indefensible. If my kids ever want to rebuild, I'll be here. If they don't, I'll still spend the rest of my life making sure I never repeat this mistake with anyone else. I didn't lose my kids overnight. I lost them slowly, every time I told myself, this isn't that bad. If anyone reading this sees themselves in that thought, don't ignore it. It's the sound of something breaking. And sometimes, leaving is the only right thing left to do. Comments. Comment 1. I'm glad you left, but I'm not going to clap for you here. Leaving doesn't undo what your kids lived through. Your daughter spent years being dismissed, monitored, invaded, and labeled difficult, while you defended the adults who were hurting her. You didn't just fail to protect her, you argued against her reality. Every time you told yourself, this isn't that bad, your kids learned they couldn't trust you to keep them safe. Your son watched all of it. He learned that compliance gets rewarded and discomfort gets ignored. He learned to stay quiet and leave instead of asking for help. That doesn't disappear just because you finally saw the light. You didn't lose your kids because of one bad choice. You lost them because you consistently chose comfort, image, and authority over listening. Sit with that. Don't rush to forgiveness. If they ever come back, it'll be on their terms, and only after you've proven you're not the kind of parent who defends harm just because it comes from a partner. Comment 2. My mom didn't leave. She stayed with the man who chipped away at our relationship piece by piece until it was unrecognizable. She never yelled. She never hit me. But she didn't stop him either. She told me I was overreacting. That he was trying. That I just needed to adjust. And eventually, I did. I adjusted by disappearing. I left, I changed my number, and I never looked back. It's been 13 years. Reading your update was like reading the ending I wish we'd had. You chose yourself. Too late for a perfect repair, maybe, but not too late to show your kids that someone changed. You didn't just say you were sorry you left. That might not bring them back now, or ever. But it gives them a different ending to the story. One where someone finally picked them. That matters more than you'll ever know. Comment 3. I'm not here to tell you you're a monster, but I am here to say this. You don't get to frame this as a tragedy that happened to you. Your kids lived in a home where their privacy wasn't protected. Their emotions were minimized, and their boundaries were treated as inconveniences. You enforced that. You defended the man who caused it. You told your daughter her opinion didn't matter. You made your son complicit by rewarding his silence. That kind of environment teaches kids that love is conditional, that speaking up is dangerous, that adults will always choose power over protection. You did the right thing by leaving, but it was the bare minimum, not redemption. The guilt you're feeling isn't something to shake off. It's something to carry responsibly. Because that guilt belongs to the kids who had to grow up too fast, while you were busy convincing yourself this was all normal. If they never come back, that's not cruelty. That's a consequence. Second story. My man-child boyfriend demanded a pet, got bored of it, then demanded that I take care of it, or he would send it away. Now he has smeared pet poo on my pillow. A few years ago, my husband was absolutely desperate to get pet guinea pigs. I was reluctant, as I work a busy job and struggle with my health due to lupus, so I didn't want to be left to have to look after them myself. He is very fickle, and I knew he would get bored of them. This did end up happening, and after a couple of years, my husband said he no longer wanted our guinea pig, and we should take her to a rescue. I was horrified, as I believe we have made a commitment to look after her, and I would be so sad to give her away. He then said the only way we could keep her was if I took over all of her care, mainly cleaning her cage. I was not happy with this because of the reasons I mentioned above, but he said if I didn't agree, then she would have to go, so I felt I had no choice. One day I was cleaning her cage, as he was continuing to refuse to do this, and ended up getting annoyed. I told him it was really unfair, as I wasn't feeling well and had been working until 7 p.m., whereas he had been home from around 3 p.m. This is the case most days. I was using a rag to clean the cage and turned round and threw it in his direction and said he could finish it off. I want to make it clear that this did not hit him, nor was it intended to hit him. It was simply so he could have the rag to finish cleaning, obviously done in frustration. I was shocked at what happened next. In a split second, he picked up the rag and came running towards me in a complete rage. I actually wondered if he was going to hit me. He ran straight into our bedroom and started rubbing the rag all over my pillow, smearing guinea pig poo on it in the process. As I mentioned earlier, I have lupus and inject immunosuppressants, meaning I don't have a functioning immune system. I had just injected a few days before, so I was so freaked out and was shouting at him to stop because of this. I never received a proper apology for this, and he just kept blaming me, saying it was because I threw the rag at him and I shouldn't have done that. On one occasion, he even said the rag hit him in the face, which is absolutely untrue. It didn't hit him anywhere. I have just had to move on from this and bury my feelings about it. But it did scare me, and I don't know if I'm overreacting. What are your thoughts? Comments. Comment 1. I want to be as gentle with you as possible when I say this, but you need to start pulling back from this relationship. If you don't find it in your heart right now to outright break up with him, go on a break, or outright divorce him, you really need to start pulling back from this relationship, emotionally and physically. That type of behavior is a precedent for immature and violent behavior that can come in the future. Knowing that your immune system is very sensitive and can easily be compromised by something like that, that is extremely malicious and intentional. Anybody else reacting to your frustration would have walked out of the room to calm down, talked it out with you right then and there about what was going on, or would have picked up the slack and cleaned out the guinea pig's cage, since he wanted it to begin with. It is incredibly selfish for him to pin the responsibility of a pet that you initially did not want onto you. I need you to understand that this is not a healthy dynamic, and this is an example of areas in your marriage where he could also fail you in more serious conditions. Please think this over, OP. I know you may not think it is as serious as it is, but in the given climate of healthcare, political instability, and social inequality between the genders, I really need you to take heed of your own safety and well-being with this particular man in your life. Has he exhibited a behavior like this before? And to what extent had he gone with it before he pulled back, if he even pulled back? Please think these types of thoughts over, and reach out to someone that you trust in your personal life about their perspective on what happened as well. Much love, and I hope you make the best decision for you and your well-being. OP, thank you for the effort you have put into this reply, and for the kindness that has shown through. This is probably the most shocking and physical incident. However, there are a lot of emotional psychological scenarios. He has a history of calling me names, usually effing BTCH, and has told me before that I bring nothing of value to the table despite owning a 6-figure business, even though I'm in my 20s and doing most of the housework. He's also said no one else would want me, etc. But the next day, I'm the best wife in the world. He has also destroyed some of my things. For example, my aunt got me a wicker Christmas decoration, and he didn't like it, so he ended up setting it on fire. He also put a reed diffuser that I got from my parents out in the rain, which ruined it. He always has a reason or justification for his actions, though. Comment 2. Can I ask what you see in him? I have read your other posts, and he is sexually abusive, verbally abusive, holds financial lists over you. When somebody shows you who they really are, believe them. Edit to add, you deserve so much more than this. This is so much worse than the bare minimum. Please leave this man and get yourself into some therapy to help work on your own self-esteem. You have so much value, and you are so worthy. You are also still young and have a whole life ahead of you. OP, honestly, the truth is that he was never like this before, the complete opposite. It doesn't even feel real that things have turned out this way. My life looks nothing like how I thought it would. Update. Hi everyone. Some of you may remember my original post and others that I posted to different forums in the summer. I received an overwhelming amount of support, which was such an incredible help in a difficult time. So many people asked me to share an update, and I'm finally in a space to be able to do that. Long story short, I left for good. The months that followed were very difficult. My husband was entitled to half my business despite not having contributed to it financially. He insisted on separate finances, which meant I got a pretty terrible financial deal on everything else to try and protect it. I did in fact have to pay him back for the one time he paid for my petrol in 2022 in the settlement. Within weeks, it became obvious that another female was staying in my house. When I came back to get my things, he had dumped most of them in a spare bedroom and covered them up with blankets and towels. He then started putting my mail in a cupboard with this new girl's things so that I would actually have to move them out of the way to get my letters. There were condom packets littered all over the place along with receipts left lying from restaurants. Eventually, it became too hard to go back, and I just left the rest of my things, meaning I only really left with my clothes and sentimental items. I decided it wasn't worth the trauma of discovering what he'd left for me to see next. It wasn't long before I found out that he had started selling everything I had left behind on Facebook. I decided not to rise to it. It's just stuff at the end of the day. However, I have to say I am doing really well. As many of you predicted, my health improved as soon as I left, and I actually haven't injected my immunosuppressants since, which is huge considering I injected every month for over 3 years. I've just bought a beautiful house that I love, and I feel as though I am slowly returning to myself and remembering who I am. I never expected to be single at 29 when all my friends are married and having babies, but I know now that there was no other option. I just want to thank everyone who took the time to comment on my original posts. Every single comment made me reflect on my situation, and I read so many of them over and over again to help me to gain strength. The kindness of strangers has been instrumental in getting me to where I am now. I hope I can live my life paying it forward. I know I have a lot of healing left to do, but I am 100% on the right path. Thank you again. Comments. Comment 1. Wow, congratulations. It's so hard to leave and start over, but you did it. Wishing you the best for your bright future, and all that will come with it. OP. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I hope that it will pay off. Thank you. Comment 2. What you did for yourself will pay off the rest of your life. OP. Love this. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.